Here is a combined summary of the 4 pages. Evolutionary dynamics with temporal higher-order interactions are studied to understand how cooperation emerges in human societies. Temporal hypernetworks, which capture time-varying interactions among individuals, are used to investigate how cooperation evolves when interactions are dynamic and involve more than 2 individuals. The findings suggest that temporal hypernetworks with sparse components and higher-order interactions can promote cooperation, potentially outperforming their static counterparts. In a degree-homogeneous uniform temporal hypernetwork, the frequency of defectors is described by the replicator equation, which captures the net growth rate of cooperators. A similarity parameter delta represents the probability that hyperlinks remain unchanged when transitioning to the next subhypernetwork. The authors derive a critical value RC for cooperators to emerge, which is inversely proportional to the group size n and depends on the similarity parameter delta, showing that a larger group size promotes cooperation. The concept of connected density is introduced to focus on the internal structure of each component, demonstrating that the average density of the temporal hypernetwork decreases rapidly and then increases as the time interval tau gets longer. Synthetic temporal hypernetworks with different properties are constructed to verify the findings, showing that the connected density induced by the temporal characteristics of hypernetworks is crucial for the evolution of cooperation. The impact of higher-order interactions on the evolution of cooperation is investigated, contrasting the effects of higher-order interactions with traditional pairwise interactions. The results demonstrate that representing group interactions as a set of pairwise interactions may lead to an underestimation of the potential for local interactions to promote cooperation, highlighting the importance of group size, connected density, and temporality in promoting cooperation. In the context of cooperation evolution, this research explores the role of higher-order interactions and their temporal dynamics in temporal hypernetworks. It analyzes how the size of these interactions affects cooperation, particularly in scenarios where the population size is significantly larger than the hyperlink size. The study demonstrates that a moderately small hyperlink size is most effective in promoting cooperation. This is attributed to the fact that increasing the size of hyperlinks can lead to higher densities and average hyperdegrees, which can impede cooperation. The findings also highlight the importance of the timing of cooperation emergence and the rate at which cooperation increases with the synergy factor. The research validates these conclusions on empirical temporal hypernetworks, including an intergovernmental organization's dataset. The results indicate that a slow structural change can promote the formation of cooperator aggregation, thereby fostering cooperation. This work has implications for understanding cooperation in various contexts, including human online interactions and international organizations. The authors also propose a novel framework to model the evolution of cooperation in temporal hypernetworks, incorporating elements from evolutionary game theory and network science. They define the payoffs for defectors and cooperators in reorganized and unchanged hyperlinks, using equations 5a and 5b and 6a and 6b, respectively. They construct synthetic hypernetworks based on empirical datasets, utilizing the Holm-Kim model to generate static networks with high clustering coefficients and scale-free distributions. These synthetic networks are then used to create temporal hypernetworks through the activation of links with a probability p, resulting in a series of snapshots. The authors emphasize the significance of considering higher-order interactions and temporal dimensions in the analysis of cooperation, as these factors can significantly influence the emergence and maintenance of cooperative behavior. They reference several studies that have demonstrated the role of such interactions in promoting cooperation, including the work by 15, 16, 19. The temporal dimension introduces an additional layer of complexity, as it allows for the evolution of cooperation over time, and the formation of subhypernetworks that can shift dynamically. In conclusion, the paper presents a novel framework for understanding the evolution of cooperation in complex systems, integrating insights from evolutionary game theory, network science, and temporal dynamics. The authors demonstrate how higher-order interactions and temporal dimensions can significantly influence the emergence and maintenance of cooperative behavior, providing new avenues for research in this field. In the context of evolutionary game theory, researchers have been exploring the dynamics of cooperation and group interactions in structured populations. A recent study by Li et al. 2021 delves into the evolutionary dynamics of synergistic and discounted group interactions within these populations, utilizing a hypergraph framework to model higher-order interactions among individuals. The authors demonstrate that when both synergistic and discounted group interactions are present, cooperation can be hindered, as opposed to scenarios where only one type of interaction is present. The study also discusses how different strategies evolve over time in response to changes in population structure, such as varying levels of synergy or discounting. The authors examine the role of aspiration dynamics in driving the evolution of cooperation, highlighting the importance of considering both the strength and direction of selection pressures on the emergence of cooperative behavior. The research contributes to our understanding of how higher-order interactions influence the emergence and maintenance of cooperation in complex systems, shedding light on the interplay between synergistic and discounted group interactions, aspiration dynamics, and temporal correlations. The research focuses on enhancing cooperation in complex systems through temporal hypernetworks. It presents empirical and synthetic results demonstrating how temporal interactions can improve cooperation compared to static networks. Key variables include the synergy factor and the frequency of cooperators. Figures and tables illustrate the advantages of higher-order interactions and the role of hyperlink sizes in promoting cooperation. The study also explores the application of these concepts to intergovernmental organizations, highlighting the impact of different types of hyperlinks on cooperation. Overall, the research emphasizes the significance of temporal interactions and higher-order connections in fostering cooperation in complex systems.